Microphone's on. And we will call order zoning appeals for Monday, July 22nd, 2024. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from July 8th, 2024.
Chairman, go ahead.
Mr. Milborn moves to approve. Second by Mrs. Peters. All those in favor raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. Any special requests or continuances?
Yes, we have one.
Okay.
Thank you once again. Marty Speed, North Point Engineering and Surveying, 6125 Southeast Street, zip code 46227. Here for BZA 2024-022. Still working out the some legal items and not quite ready to approach the board yet. So we'd like to ask for a 28-day extension.
Okay. So that would be to the 26th of August.
Let me check my calendar quick.
12. Well, but they want the extra. So
Yeah.
the
They
26th.
want 28 days.
28th.
No.
26th.
No, they want 28.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be the next meeting would be August 26th.
Right.
Yeah.
Not the next one. but
Next one will be the 12th, but then,
2
Well,
weeks.
yeah.
and then the 26th.
26.
Okay. So and how do we have an agenda or?
There are we have a number of applications that said they would be submitted by this Friday, which is the deadline for that meeting, and so far I haven't gotten any.
Okay.
Well,
But I would expect to have a full agenda.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, just from staff too, I do think, so the original hearing date was June 24th, 2024. This has already been continued a number of times. It's up to the Board of Zoning Appeals to continue it. Sometimes when it does get far out, you may want to consider recommending that they read public notice if you feel like it's been too far for the general public to keep track or remember what date you're on.
Okay. That whoever makes the motion. A motion to move to August 26th with or without an advisory to republish. Without. Okay. Motion to move to the 26th without republishing. Second by Mr. Mull. All those in favor raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. All right, we will see you on the 26th of August.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other continuances or special requests? Seeing none, we'll do findings of fact. BZA 2024-023, a development standards variance for petitioner Jessica Franklin, which was for property at 337 West Pearl Street.
During consideration of statutory criteria, I move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted to record as our final decision and final action for various petition number BZA. BZA 2024-023.
Motion by Mr. Mull, second by Mrs. Peters. All those in favor raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. BZA 2024-024, development standards variance for Jack Disney for the property at 689 Hillcrest Drive.
Mr. Chairman, I consider the consideration of the statutory criteria, I move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted into the record as our final decision and final action for variance petition number BZA 2024-024.
Motion by Mr. Mull, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. The old business we had was continued. Any old business from the floor? Seeing none, we'll move to new business. We have one docket, which is BZA 2024-025. This is the development standards variance for 1535 West Stones Crossing Road. Petitioner is Brent Roberts on behalf of Fanaman Design for the Fujiyama Steakhouse, requesting relief from 5 sections of the UDO. Number 1, front elevation to allow columns made of steel. Number 2, a front elevation to reduce the required transparency from 30% to 25% on the east front facade. Number 3, to allow exterior materials other than the predominant front facade material on the side rear facades. Number 4, to allow the south elevation to be considered a side elevation instead of a front elevation. And number 5, to allow glass block to be used on a front facade on the north side. Anyone else besides the gentleman at the podium wishing to speak to this docket? Seeing none, I'll have you sworn in by our secretary.
Do you swear under penalty of perjury, testimony is true to the best of your knowledge?
And is everything in order as far as notice receipts?
Everything is in order and in our files.
And I'd like to start the Greenwood, City of Greenwood comprehensive plan and ordinance.
All right, name and address for the record, and also is the form up there for him to fill out?
Yes.
Okay, if you could fill that out so we get it correct in spelling and everything.
Brent Roberts, 934 Fort Wayne Avenue, Indianapolis, Indiana.
Is the
Not sure the
microphone
mic is
on?
on, or it doesn't sound like it's on.
It's not on.
We get some help with the mic.
Hello?
Can we get help with the mic? The podium does not appear to be active. Sorry.
Super sensitive. Talk into it.
There we go.
Okay.
All right, when you tap out, we weren't getting.
Brent Roberts, 934 Fort Wayne Avenue, Indianapolis, Indiana.
Thank you. And tell us why you're here, Mr. Roberts.
So we are filing for 5 variances for Fujiyama Steakhouse, Japan. It's on Stone Crossing Road. Quickly go through them. So the variance 1 about allowing columns to make a seal. We have 7 columns around the building that are more decorative in nature. The idea was to have a very minimal column that's standing out from the building, so you kind of get a shifting view, right, as you're driving by, kind of get a change in perspective. And so it works better if they're minimal. I believe I don't think that our structural engineer is really relying on any of them, but maybe the one on the northeast corner is probably the one that's most usable, but I see that there's not even really a plan that you can see on
Yeah, there's no
very well.
real description of a picture of it.
I can say on the colored elevation, you look at the south elevation, which is the first sheet. On the left-hand side, you can see faint dashed lines. There's 3 of them. It's on the left side. I don't know that I can point out. Then on the east elevation, there would be one on the far right-hand side of that elevation. That same column would appear on the far left-hand side of the north elevation. And then there'd be one kind of near the front entrance there.
Okay.
But they're like 6x6 square tube columns that would be painted out. And so they will have a very minimal effect on the building.
Okay.
And we'll see if there was any further drawings that I could point them out better to you. The floor plan does show them. It was nearly the last page in the staff report. There are, if you're looking at it at the north pointing up, there are 3 on the south wall that are kind of under a canopy. There's one that's on the northeast corner, and then another one that just a little farther down on the other side of that front entrance. And then on the other end, the northwest corner, there's a column there as well. The variance 2 was to reduce the required transparency from 30 to 25%. On the east facade, that's our smaller facade, and because our parapet is a little bit higher to hide equipment, and we have that monumental wall, it kind of throws off our calculations, and so we do have a lot of windows if you were to just look at the sort of the ground level. Then number 3, to allow exterior materials other than the predominant front facade material on side and rear facades. Says 4 to 2 with the fact that our south facade faces an access drive and was being considered as a front elevation. And so what we're hoping for there is that it would be considered a side elevation, and we can use a variety of materials. You can see there that's a mix of brick and stone, and there is a little bit of fiber cement siding, both in the window panels and from that canopy line. Canopy line is the kind of dark bronze color that makes a kind of a strong line right above the windows. Variance 4 was, like I just mentioned, was to allow the south elevation to be considered a side elevation. Then variance 5 is to allow glass of block to be used on the north facade. I do have this to show it's not necessarily just a normal glass block. You know, like this is the backside, this would be on the inside. I assume that this is what you were probably opposed to, but this will have a lot more of an architectural interest to it. So with that, I'd be happy to answer your questions.
We'll do 2 questions here in a second. We need to walk through and get on the record your responses to the statutory criteria for each.
Okay.
So we'll go back to number 1, allow columns made of steel. Do you have your responses to those?
I do.
Okay, so let's walk through. Number 1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because?
The proposed design for the building includes minimal painted tube and steel columns that allow greater visibility of the exterior building conditions.
And then number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because?
The proposed design for the fascia columns will not affect the use or value of areas adjacent to the property. Proposed design places an emphasis on building with minimal columns.
And number 3, the strict application of the terms of zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because?
If applied to the building columns, the commercial building design standard would be an unnecessary hardship since it would directly impact the design of the building. The columns and exterior wall will create a dynamic 3-dimensional shift in view since they would be in different planes.
And then number 4 I'll handle, which is structure is not regulated under Indiana Code 8-21-10-3 for hazard air navigation. On variance number 2, to reduce the required transparency from 30% to 25% on the front east facade. Number 1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because?
The proposed design for the building includes a variety of window sizes and materials. The design will not be injurious because it is only a slight reduction in transparency percentage in order to incorporate the monumental wall feature.
Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because?
Proposed design for the building includes a variety of window sizes and materials. The design will not affect areas adjacent to the property in an adverse manner because it is only a slight reduction in transparency percentage in order to incorporate, that was the same one?
Some of those, yeah.
In order to incorporate the monumental wall feature.
Number 3, the strict application of the terms of zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in use of the property because?
If applied to the building, the transparency required by the commercial building design standard would be an unnecessary hardship since it would directly impact the design of the building and its function as a restaurant. Petitioner's proposed design for the building include a variety of window sizes and materials. The design will not be injurious because it's only a slight reduction in transparency percentage in order to incorporate the monumental wall feature.
And the answer for being regulated under Indiana Code 8-10-21, 8-21-10-3 for hazard air applies to all 5 variances, which is not applicable, so we won't repeat that again. Number 3, to allow exterior materials other than the predominant front facade material on the side rear facades. Number 1, the approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because
Proposed design for the west and south side elevations is more attractive than fully cladding the side elevations and only one material. The commercial building design standard should be applied as a minimum level of design expectation, should not prevent designs that incorporate updates of materials. Petitioner's proposed building would have the same design sensitivity on the side elevations as it does on the front elevations. The finish on the side elevations is consistent with the front elevations.
And number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because
The proposed design is a more attractive solution when viewed from an adjacent property, since the side elevations are treated with the same design treatment as the front elevations.
And number 3, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because
Commercial building design standards should be applied as a minimum level of design expectation and should not prevent designs that incorporate a mix of materials as long as a higher design sensitivity is being proposed.
Variance number 4, to allow the south elevation to be considered a side elevation instead of a front elevation. Number 1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because
Proposed design for the building includes 2 front elevations facing Stones Crossing Road and Schwartz Lane. The approval will not be injurious because the south elevation has a higher level of design than the commercial building design standards require for a side elevation.
Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because
Proposed design for the building includes 2 front elevations facing Stones Crossing Road and Schwartz Lane. The use and value of the adjacent area will not be adversely affected because the south elevation has a higher level of design than the commercial building design standards require for a side elevation.
And number 3, the strict application of the terms of zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because
Proposed design for the building includes 2 front elevations, Stones Crossing Road and Schwartz Lane. An access drive will be located to the south. The commercial building design standards section 100314 requires elevations facing public streets to be considered front facade. Providing the 30% transparency on the south wall would be extremely difficult to achieve because the kitchen of the restaurant is on the west and south walls.
Variance number 5, to allow glass block to be used on a front north facade. Number 1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because
Proposed design for the building incorporates decorative fluted glass block for the monumental window on the north facade of the proposed Fujiyama building. The approval will not be injurious because the decorative fluted glass block provides a dynamic visual effect that adds to the building's design.
Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because
The proposed design for the building incorporates decorative fluted glass block for the monumental window on the north facade of the proposed Fujiyama building. Use and value of the adjacent areas will not be adversely affected because the decorative fluted glass block provides a dynamic visual effect that adds to the building's design.
And number 3, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because
The proposed design for the building incorporates several different window types to create different dining experiences for the customers. The decorative fluted glass block provides daylight while also providing an interesting and uncommon design feature. The decorative fluted glass block provides an appropriate balance between the commercial building design standard transparency requirement and the tradition of Japanese hibachi restaurants having few or no windows.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate you walking through that. Anything else you would like to add before I ask staff for their comments?
Not at this time.
All right, staff.
Thank you. So out of the 5 variances, the only one staff is opposed to are the columns made of steel. This is similar to other requests that have come before the board. The other 4, I think, make a lot of sense. The transparency, both in variance number 2 and number 4, the restaurant, you're basically limited to where you can put windows at, and when you end up with essentially 3 frontages, you're not going to be able to put windows everywhere. I think what they have proposed looks very nice. Variance number 3, the side and rear facades being able to use multiple materials. We are now seeing this, I feel like, every single meeting, and I still don't like it. We don't allow that, it's a negative to our UDO, in my opinion, so we're definitely in favor of bringing a variance on that one. Variance number 5, also in favor of, not sure why we don't allow glass block, but I think it provides a very different appearance than anything else. I'm not really sure what you could use in our ordinance that would be permitted to provide that same effect. So yes, we are proposing recommendation for variances 2 through 5. Only condition that substantially conform to the building elevations and site plan and exhibit C and D.
Very good. Any, and you're aware of that requirement, I see there's no issues with, that conforming to that? The site plan and the building elevations?
Yeah, I was aware in the staff report of staff's opposition to the columns. Part of it, I realize every project is different. I was here last year with 2 buildings across the street. That, in our view, it was a very similar thing. We were at least in one of them, we were choosing a decorative wood column. In order, it's supporting a canopy also, but the wood was a nicer kind of material in front of the stone that we already had, and we had some glass, and we thought that the material would be better, keeping it a little more minimal in size. In this case, we have a lot of stone and brick, and it really wasn't our intent. These columns aren't holding the building up, right? They're a decorative. They're almost like, in some ways you can look at it, it's like bamboo or something like that, where you're getting very slender pieces, and they're maybe like a couple feet out in the front of the building elevation, because we have, like I mentioned, that canopy detail that sticks out a couple feet, and so they're under that. But so the idea is that, yeah, you're getting kind of a shifting viewpoint as you drive by. If we wrap them in stone, I mean, they would basically become part of the building, because there's not all that much space in between. If you're open to them being wrapped in wood, I mean, we would be open to agreeing to that. But if the decision is to wrap them in either brick or stone or stucco, then we would probably just end up deleting them entirely. And unfortunately, we like it as a design feature, but we're not trying to make them massive. We're trying to keep them minimal. Hopefully that explains it. And I'm sorry, I don't have better pictures here. I think that we did have some 3D renderings, but I guess we didn't make it into the packet. They didn't send them or something. So.
Fair enough. Anything else?
Nothing else to say.
All right, then I will close the public hearing. Mr. Moll?
I'm good.
Mr. Millward?
Question. These other variances that we allowed across the street with the wood, is that something that is amenable with the staff? That would be
Or wood columns instead.
So.
you know the history of the other buildings, so.
Yeah, we're looking at the commercial building design standards, and during our review, when we look at the elevations that are submitted to us and the materials are labeled, it was identified that they would need a variance for the steel. The commercial design standards state all columns on the front elevation shall be clad in stone, brick, or stucco. So even if they were clad in wood, it still would have been flagged as uncompliant for staff's review of it. And just as far as kind of like fitting into the area, each variance is unique and can be addressed based on the impact to surrounding properties as is mentioned in the statutory criteria. But as far as staff being amenable to wood over steel, I don't think we necessarily have a preference between the two. It was just the fact that it was not on our approved list that we had to flag it for either a Board of Zoning Appeals variance or correction with a compliant material.
I guess, now to get my point clear, if we've already approved it for other buildings there in the area, would this be consistent with those buildings if they went to wood? That's my question. We've already done this for
I
other
guess-
buildings in the area.
I guess my point, from my point of view on that, we just did a approval of a steel, some, not across the street, and I get that wood's been done across the street. To me, this is decorative. I understand staff's position. It's not a supporting column. It's not a structural column. It's small in nature. I'm not sure it matters if it's wood or steel on that side from that
Okay.
standpoint. To me, it's, do we want to allow a decorative material that's different than what the code says, that brings uniqueness to the building and branding to the building, if you will. So again,
Okay.
from strict application, it doesn't necessarily result in practical difficulties from supporting of the building itself, but it does bring practical difficulties to the branding and that of the petitioner. And from the standpoint of, to his point, if you want something that small and thin for the decoration, it probably doesn't make sense to be stone.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult to do with brick or stone. It's maybe a little easier in stucco, but stucco doesn't really fit with the design of the building because we're not using it anywhere else. So.
I think just lastly, I would try to focus on the request that the petitioner has written in their application, opposed to trying to use your position to come up with a different design or style. Similar with like a sign variance, it's, you know, yes or no, do you approve the request for, you know, say it's a larger sign or et cetera, but to have them design the content differently or the shape of the sign would be a little bit out of what I believe the Board of Zoning Appeals role is. It's just take the application and say, does it meet this or does it not to suggest necessarily an alternative material. You guys can definitely feel free to put a condition onto something, but that has to be related and tied to the actual request or project.
I don't have any other questions myself. Then I will take a motion to admit all the evidence in the record.
Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the Unified Development Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and any remonstrators, and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. Moll. All those in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. Take a motion on request number 1 to allow columns made of steel.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve request number 1 with the one condition that it's the one staff report condition.
Which
You want
is,
me to read that one?
Oh, sorry. The final plan shall substantially conform to the site plan depicted in Exhibit C and building elevations depicted in Exhibit D.
motion by Mr. Moll with the one condition, second by Mrs. Peters. All those in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. Request number 2 to reduce the required transparency from 30% to 25% on the front east facade.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the request with the same conditions.
Motion to approve with one condition in the staff report, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Number 3, to allow exterior materials other than the predominant front facade material on side rear facades.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve this request with the same conditions.
Motion to approve with the same conditions, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. Number 4, to allow south elevation to be considered a side elevation instead of a front elevation.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve this request with the same conditions.
Motion by Mr. Moll to approve the same conditions, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. And request number 5, it says number 4 on your ballot, make that a number 5. To allow glass block to be used on the front north facade.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve this request with the same conditions.
Motion by Mr. Moll, second by Mr. Milborn with the same condition to approve. All those in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0.
And note that there's no signature line on that one.
Yes, so create a signature line. Make a motion to direct the corporation's counsel to draft written findings of fact.
Chairman, having considered the statutory criteria, I move that we direct the Corporation Counsel's Office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variance request presented in variance petition number BZA 2024-025. Said findings to specifically incorporate the staff report and the evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as our final decision and final action regarding this petition at our next meeting.
Motion by Mrs. Peters, second by Mr. Moll. All those in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, that same sign. Motion carries 4-0. You are welcome to proceed working with staff with whatever you may need to go through, but we'll take final action in 2 weeks, but that you don't need to wait on us at this point. Thank you. Any new business from the floor? Seeing none, announcements?
Got a couple announcements for you guys. If you stick around tonight, HWC will be presenting to Plan Commission on the draft comprehensive plan. They'll also be doing a second presentation, a longer form presentation on July 24th. That's this Wednesday at the public library. That starts at 6 p.m. And that is more of a presentation format. I know our past events have been kind of open house, pop in when you want, which you're still welcome to attend at any time you can. But with this presentation, it is not as much of an open house. It is more of a formal presentation with time for questions at the end. The draft comprehensive plan is live on plangreenwood.com. And there's also a survey link. So if you've looked at the plan, I would encourage you to fill out that survey to provide structured, meaningful input on the plan. So if you think it is encompassing what you've heard from the public and what your vision and desires for Greenwood is, let us know on that survey. If you feel like there's an area that we're missing or that's lacking, we want to know that as well.
Anyone else have trouble with the link? Previously sent?
The first link, it is running again.
Okay.
There's an issue. The domain was auto-renewed but the website needed to also be renewed. The website is now renewed, it should be working fine. If you have trouble with the link now or need us to resend the link, please let us know.
Thank you, guys. I didn't know it was a year. Something else, so I appreciate that. All right,
Got a number of emails, so.
any other? If not, I'll take a motion for adjournment. So move, we adjourn, stop the recording, and turn off my